My name is Mozuku, and I am one of Sokuzan's monks. Sokuzan's teachings and this community depend on your generosity, both through your participation and financially. If you value these teachings and this community, please consider donating on our website at sokukoji.org. Thank you so much.
The Buddha said, so I'm about to talk about something the Buddha said. The Buddha said, and then there's a dot, 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 dot. What did the Buddha say? Well, the Buddha said a lot of things. So I also want to say that last week's talk was about difficult communications or conversations. I'm open to questions in that area. I'm open to questions in any area or discussion in that area. But I'd like to go in this area a little bit. Something the Buddha said that's very important, very basic. It could be just said as basic Buddhist teachings. That's what it is. It's he said a lot of things. This one thing that he said is the root of suffering is attachment. So a lot of teachers, a lot of people, a lot of students of the Buddha's Dharma think you have to get rid of attachment by pushing it away or stop being attached or some kind of control modality, including using meditation to stop being attached. This is a big misunderstanding. It was my misunderstanding for over 3 decades. Long time. Does this mean that, oh, I understand it now? No, I don't. I don't understand it. I can barely even speak. So what am I going to say about that? The root. You have a palm tree as a root. Can't really see the root. And you can't really see the attachment, but you can see the palm tree. You can see the branches and leaves of that attachment. And they don't necessarily look like attachment. So the way to work with this that I teach is be aware of it. Be aware, be responsible for your attachment. If you try to push it away, like for instance, anger, if you try to never get angry, even though I think it's the 9th grave precept in our particular Soto Zen lineage is don't be angry. Well, I got to say something, but let's start out with stop it. Don't be angry. But the teaching around that is to see how you can't stop that. And so this is where, when you see that you can't stop that, then there are ways, devices, or algorithms, or whatever you want to say, to work with it in such a way that you can just stop doing that. I'm not against those. I would say go ahead and use those. If those work for you, you can modify your behavior, change your attitude, or change your functioning in some way, then go ahead. I try to respect all different kinds of approaches. I don't know what you're ready to do, but the way it looks to me, having looked at this for a long, long time, way before most of you were even born, I've been looking at this. What have I been looking at? Attachment. What have I been looking at? Anger. Has it gone anywhere? No. If you've been around me very much, you probably see me burst into anger and burst into tears, maybe within the first 10 minutes. There's nothing to get rid of. Don't bullshit yourself. Don't believe me. Don't disbelieve me, and don't ignore what I'm saying. Just receive this, consider it. This is the mudra of considering. I think Rodin would have said, no, it's more like this. Actually, this is more like ignorance. That's a nice sculpture. Have you ever seen that? Seen pictures of it. Where is it at? Isn't it? It's in Newark.
Newark.
You need some kind of response. So be aware. And how can you possibly be aware of something that's so rough around the edges, so distressing, and so reactive? Something happens, this happened, then that happened, then suddenly you're mad. Or this happens, that happens, and so this happens, and you're jealous. Or this happens, and then that happens, and you feel controlled or put upon, or like somebody's trying to you. All of the different things. We could go on and on. There's a whole list, as you know. All the different emotions, not only negative emotions, but positive emotions too. Those can also engender attachment. So what did the Buddha say? You're gonna have to look. I'll quote it. I'll read the quote. This is a smartphone. You haven't seen one of those? The root of suffering is attachment. This is what the Buddha said. He probably said it sure he said it in a different language, but the root, the cause of the root of suffering or distress or unhappiness is hanging on to something, because your true nature doesn't even have any hands. Your true nature has no claws. Your true nature has no desire. Your true nature is completely in front of you and totally hidden. It's called an open secret. You can see that. How do you see it? You look at the cover-ups. You look at the way you push, passion. You look at the way you or aggression. You look at the way you pull or manipulate or blame or spend time going around in circles around trying to figure something out. Logic and reason work up to a point. But when you come to the edge of a cliff where there's nothing there, logic does not work. Even physicists run into that situation where they can't get a reference point. Is it a particle or is it a wave? Things start to fall apart when you get very, 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 very tiny. If you get very, 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 very large, same thing happens. This is an illusion. You can see that you actually, all you need is to be a human being. That's your birthright, is to see the nature of the mind, which is Buddha or awake. You can do this. It's called a spiritual path. I'm not against the mundane path. I've said many times, and I'll say it again, do whatever you need to do. I'm not trying to chase you out of here, but if this works for you, then when I say works, and if you, not that you get results, but you begin to have a deep understanding that you need to continue looking at your mind, not looking out in the world and try to fix her or change that guy or anything. Not that you can't do some of that, but that kind of attraction out there gives us the illusion that we have some say-so about something. You don't. You could come back and disagree and argue with me about it and say, well, yeah, but I do have this and I can control this and I control that. And then I would lose. I would say, well, okay, you got me there. And then you might say, well, I thought you just said you have no control. I said, you don't. But I can't argue with what you think because you believe your thoughts. And I don't believe my thoughts, nor do I disbelieve them, nor do I ignore them. That's the only difference. Am I puffing up here with some kind of credential? Probably. I'm sitting on a seat and I'm wearing a purple robe and wearing a fancy thing. So need a little bit of a credential, but I have no backup from what I'm saying. I can't prove anything. And I'm asking you, don't believe me. Telling you, don't believe this, but consider it. When I say, look at the nature of your mind and how could you do that? What would you use as a reference point? Attachment. Just look at what you're attached to. Attached to control, attached to your job, attached to your wife, attached to your husband, attached to your children. Sometimes children are powerful attachments because they think they're ours. They're powerful attachments because they're not acting like we think children should act, at least our children. Our children should act this way or this way or this way. Outrageous, just outrageous pride, outrageous belief that you have some say-so about anything, that you're actually separate from something. This is the very nature of war. This is what's happening. No one is to blame for the Gaza Strip, the horror that's happening there. There's no person to, we have a few names, but there's no personhood. If you go to the singularity of it, you're participating in the illusion. Go ahead, argue with me. I'll lose. I always have to lose. And no one over here can win anything. So observe the attachment and see the way the attachment gets stronger one day, and the next day it backs off a little bit. And then we start to have some hope that maybe it's going to go away. Maybe we won't have anger anymore. After all, we're meditating 2 or 3 hours a day. Or after all, we're working on our mind. Or after all, maybe you're not meditating. Maybe you're seeing a therapist who's helping you look directly at the ghosts in your mind stream. It's done with awareness. When I say it's done, I'm saying the way you work with the first noble truth of the Buddha, life is suffering, is to see that it's caused by desire, second noble truth, or as he says here, attachment. You're attached to something. So if you're attached to something and you push on it, that's attachment. Try to get rid of it. If you're attached to something, you explain it, use logic or reason or validation or who caused it. That's more attachment. And also, if you turn away from it, these are the 3 poisons in Buddhism: passion, aggression, and ignorance. Excuse me. Liking and disliking. Circular. I could say more about that, but maybe it's a good time to open up for questions, either in that area or in the area of difficult conversations, which was the topic of last year. Yes.
Robert Bowen.
Robert.
There's another word that's used in a temple, proper attunement. What is the difference between attachment and attunement?
Attunement is seeing the attachment without grasping it, validating it, saying, I'm attached because. Don't leave the awareness of attachment for what caused it. That's ego. The ego's talking to you. If you can just find out who caused it, then you can create a story around why it's happening and how you can't do anything about it. And you've tried as hard as you can, and all in all, not just you, but me. How do I know this? I just spent most of my life doing that. More, Robert, you have it.
Robert Bowen. So on a spiritual level, what is proper attunement?
So as it says in, I think it's one of the sutras, a hair's breadth deviation will fail to, is it attune to the proper, what you would call it? Accord. Is that short for accordion? Not funny. So will fail to accord with the fundamental nature of reality, which is not a singularity. It's not a multiplicity. That's why it's so difficult to find it, because we're looking for something. We are on a search for something. And we don't realize, unless we have a teacher, unless we listen to the teacher, unless we listen to the Buddha, that what you're looking for is right in front of you. But you may have to look at all the cover-ups first before you start to see through that into the fundamental nature of what this is. If you look out here, you don't see anything but this. One way of saying it is you don't see anything but yourself. You don't see anything but consciousness. Lots of ways of talking about that, and all of them are conceptual, and all of them miss the point. And what is the point? There's no point. But it's not nihilism. It's not the nihilism of the existentialists back in the previous century. It's just the truth. More about that attunement.
Robert Bowen. So what does attunement look like without words?
You don't see anything. There's just consciousness. So everything that shows up is an illusion. You see no solid separation anywhere. And if you do see separation, at the same time you see the separation, you realize there's nothing else but this. There's just consciousness. Another way of saying it has been said way before we all got here, as the observer and what is observed are no longer 2 separate things. There are no two separate things anywhere. And it's not even an experience, because if it's an experience, it goes away. So if that understanding is called wisdom, or yan is the Sanskrit for it, and a person may have to study all of that conceptual stuff for a while, and also train the mind to sit still and watch the movement before the concept of what this is and the direct perception of what this is stop separating from each other. More?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yoga bowing. To reach attunement, do we have to stop the discord?
No. Don't have to stop anything. Just look at the discord. All the Buddha did, and I'm not minimizing what the Buddha did, but to put it directly and pretty bluntly, is the Buddha looked at the discord without pushing it or confusion, and looked at the discord without explaining it or justifying or doing. He just received what that was. And by doing that, that was his awakening. So discord and awakening are not two separate things. It's talked about in that way. Go ahead.
Yoga bowing. When I'm attached to what I want, what is the deviation?
You add something to it. If you're attached to what you want and that's it, then that's it. That's awareness. But if you think that shouldn't be there, or you shouldn't be attached, or you shouldn't want that, or the other way is you deserve that and it should just come to you so you don't have to worry about your attachment to it. You just get your way. All of that is similar kind of storyboard. More?
Yoga bowing. What does the attunement, where does it get? When we're aware of what's happening in our displeasure of a situation,
Yes.
is there anything that brings about attunement?
Yes.
What?
Lose. Fall into it. I'm not talking about nihilism. I'm saying whatever shows up, that you are that. You don't separate yourself from the horror of the world. The first noble truth is life is suffering. If you keep trying to fix it or patch it up or explain it or blame somebody or get rid of it, this is the very nature, the cyclic nature of samsara. Life and death and right and wrong and up and down. This is a spiritual path where you understand your fundamental nature so that even if you die, nothing will happen. So another way of saying it more literally is just whatever shows up, just cave into it. It's your emotion. Be responsible for how you feel. The description might be, I feel like crap. If you say that, then you just left what was there and covered up with an idea, concept, a judgment, an evaluation, and a determination about it. You've sealed yourself away from the truth of it. The truth of it is worse than what you just said. You need to feel it. Yes,
Beyond bowing, when you say lose,
I do.
is this a style of surrender?
It's like that, but there's no one surrendering. It's just, it's very, surrender has kind of a, I think I'm just going to have to surrender to this. No, that's ego language. Ego gets a very slight sliver of a credential out of being the one who's surrendering. Things are really difficult, and then I just surrendered to it, and things started working out a lot better. Bullshit. The loss of the word, even the word lose doesn't get there, but it's more like that. It's like sadness is always with us. Unceasing depression fills our minds.
Beyond bowing, whether it's lose or surrender, or whichever word is there, where does losing and surrender, does it bring consciousness anywhere? Where does that take us?
Doesn't take you anywhere. It's just losing. It's just, you're screwed. It's the ego addressing how it's probably going to feel. Ego is not like that, and it will struggle for some kind of a reference point or a accomplishment or getting some kind of pat on the back for surrendering. Ego is because it's an illusion, you can't get rid of it. So it's always sneaking up on your left side, kind of whispering in your ear, well, take that off from him, or do this or do that. Some kind of whispering going on there with the self-centeredness, the narcissism, the ego. Yes.
and bowing. I'm wondering, is there a relationship or how you may see a relationship between depth of consciousness and losing and surrendering?
How you make a relationship between the depth of consciousness and
What is the relationship between depth of consciousness and losing?
No depth. No depth. The concept of consciousness is, it comes apart. There's no relationship there. If there's a relationship, then we're trying to fiddle with it or do something with it or get it to be a good relationship or a clear relationship. We're looking for clarity. We like to be clear about things. As we actually look into a mud puddle and look for clarity. And there is clarity there, but it's a reflection. Have you ever noticed that clear water and muddy water reflect the same? Do they? Oh. Is that a response? More? Go ahead.
Beyond bowing. Does losing, this process of losing, surrendering, you said it doesn't bring us anywhere, but I'm thinking I'm just thinking of the word open dimension and
Oh, I use that. It's an open dimension where there's no reference point. Nothing is lost, nothing is gained, nothing. Reference points are just kind of collapse. But what the ego mind will get a glimpse of that and then try to maintain that. Just want to stay open. No, this is called spiritual materialism by my teacher, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche. There's no gaining idea. The gaining idea will nip you in the bud at some point. Trying to get something, trying to accomplish something. It's worse than that. That's better. It's worse because ego does not get any nourishment from this. It collapses, it starves because it does not get what it's looking for is a reward that you are somebody going somewhere, accomplishing something, getting something. It's a terrible, terrible feeling of suffering, First Noble Truth. And it's better. Let me just finish one there. That's the worst part. And so didn't I say it's better than that? Huh? I know I said that. I don't need you to help me. It's better than that. And why is it better than that? To use a very simple conceptual way of talking about it. You're liberated. Liberation. Nothing was ever imprisoned. That's the liberation. You see that consciousness was never in a prison, never in a jail, or never tied up in concepts. And so therefore nothing really occurs. Ground is suffering. Ground, path, and fruition. Ground is suffering. The path is train your mind to see more clearly. And the fruition is nothing happens because you have transcended this world. Without leaving it, you still leave footprints in the snow. Go ahead.
one more, I think, beyond bowing. Are you saying that losing might bring us right back into this circular samsara suffering misery?
More than likely will. That's called the path of the Bodhisattva. That's surprising. Yeah, you're still in the illusion. The path of the Bodhisattva, of course, is to put others before yourself, save all beings. That's very hard, especially if the beings are determined that you're not going to meddle with them or change them or teach them anything. And you have no right to come and poke your finger in their eye, even though you're their teacher. No, I don't want to be taught that way. I'd rather be taught kind of like really sweet and nice by a kind old man. Well, I'm not a kind old man. And I've been threatening you for here, what, 6, 7 months now? It's been 2 years or 15 years. And what am I doing? I'm just trying to say this is, I'm trying to warn you. This is very, very hard. If you want to, like we did last Saturday or other times, if you want to accuse me of being abusive or mean or something like that, you probably have a point. I'm sure you do, but it's a spiritual path. So therefore, that doesn't mean that, oh, the teacher gets to do whatever he wants. No. If you think there's something fishy going on with this old man, then go lock on the door. Go do something else. More?
You and Mallory, you just said if there's something, if somebody thinks there's something fishy going on with you, look elsewhere.
I did. Look for other
It's an
fish.
open door, but look elsewhere.
It's open door is come and go. You can come back, you can go away. I'm just saying that there's nobody's holding on to you here. But if you're here in this room, I have to tell you, I have to speak to you out of what I'm looking at, not what I'm thinking about. That doesn't mean I don't think, just not very much. So all I'm trying to be respectful, as respectful as I can to your confusion. I don't know what it's like to have your karma or Yinlong's karma or Chokodao's karma or anyone else. And I don't know what it's like to have to be born, whatever, how many years ago, and to go through your childhood and your conditioning and everything that you had to deal with just to grow up and without going crazy in this world. Maybe you had really loving, kind, supportive parents, but that doesn't mean that the karma brought you into the world was loving and kind. You might have not appreciated how kind your parents were. Or you might have been, well, I could go on and on, but I'm saying, I don't know what you're dealing with, but if you can handle it, I'm here to help you. My only intention is not to get your money, get you to be one of my followers. I don't have any followers. Is to fundamentally help you see your true nature, which I had the help from a Tibetan master and a Japanese Zen master. They helped me a great deal. And I can't tell them, I can't thank them, they're gone. But I didn't realize this until after both of them had died, how much help I got from them. Further questions if you have them?
Navid bowing.
Navid.
Would you say that awakening to our true nature is expressing the moment without any attachment to the feelings that arise or to the person who is experiencing those feelings? Bowing.
I would say that it's true just before you said that. But as soon as you say that, it starts to get kind of slimy, with relative kind of getting somewhere feelings. So yes, your insight there is very is closer to what Robert was talking about, a hair's breadth of deviation from this. So, but you deviated from it as soon as you start to explain it or describe it. You actually go away. Not that you can't do that. There are some fundamental, you could say, spiritual geniuses of the first order that are able to use concepts without really losing the tailwind of reality. They're able to actually say it, and the words don't cover up what is being expressed. Very unusual. I highly recommend Dogen Zenji, 13th century Zen master, or Vasubandhu, a few hundred years earlier. And then other teachers, the Buddha, which I just quoted the Buddha. What did he say again? I have to go back and look at that. Shows you how well my memory works. Oh, that's right. Root of suffering is attachment. Yes, I actually forgot that.
Navid,
Yes.
Navid bowing.
Yes.
What brings about that non-attachment naturally? Bowing.
So, if you actually see attachment, you realize you don't have to get rid of it. So realizing you don't have to get rid of attachment, you don't have to get rid of anything or change anything. This is as close as we can come to non-attachment, but this isn't even non-attachment, because non-attachment is not a position. If it is a position, then we're right back to relative truth. Attachment, non-attachment. The Buddhist teaching is a relative provisional teaching that helps us just look at our life and saying, the reason you are having difficulty, the root of your suffering is because you're grasping, rejecting, or shutting down. But the ultimate understanding goes beyond that. It goes beyond the accomplishment. I sometimes say it this way: you won't care how you feel. You won't care if you're attached. But you'll be very vividly aware of the attachment. In other words, you're no longer missing your life. Your karma brought you into this life as a particular being with a particular a set of causes and conditions that give you a musical ability maybe, or maybe none, or maybe the ability to work with numbers, with mathematics or something. So you're gifted with that. You could say it that way. But there's all kinds of other dynamics happening in karma that just receive. Whatever shows up in your mind has a right to be there. Just receive it. Don't fight with anything if you can. And if you do fight, lose. Welcome. Have some more time left? Questions from anyone? Yes.
Chokodao bowing. Before we go elsewhere, would it be a good idea to bring our issues to you? Like, I think something's fishy here.
Yes, I recommend that, and I try to encourage people to do that. We've been having some community meetings and so on, and I'm open. As you know, there's my office, there's a hojo, is open. All you have to do is come and knock on the door, and I'll say, come back later. I mean, I might, it's situational, but you should come and knock again. Because I'm seeing this person or that person, I'm always available, as you know, especially if you live here. If you don't live here, I'm available on Zoom. I think I haven't talked to everyone here on Zoom, but quite a few people I've talked to. So I'm available, not that I'm so wonderful, but I'm saying I'm available to respond to whatever it is you're dealing with. And if you are having difficulty, I would say let's talk about it, see what it's about. I've had students that just won't tell me. They just won't tell me. They end up going another direction. That's not incorrect. It's just the causes and conditions are so complicated. There's no right or wrong. There's no right or wrong. You already, I know you understand what you're asking about. But yes, I would say talk to me about it. Don't just walk out the door and never talk again. But what I'm trying to say is that you could actually trust your own feelings and emotions around things. And if you feel like there's something that's off kilter or whatever, use a fancy word, unethical, come and talk to me about it. Don't gossip with other people about it, especially not only Sangha, but gossip with people that have no practice. It's not, I mean, you might be correct. You might be seeing something that is actually, we should talk about. Maybe you could help me to stop kicking people. Have I kicked you lately?
I don't know.
Oh, what an answer. More?
A different question.
Yes, sir.
Chokodao bowing. One of the precepts, I don't have it memorized, talks about, I vow to not do things that create attachment, something like that. I'm
Yes.
paraphrasing. How does that relate to the topic?
Well, I feel that that's pretty straightforward with each person. So I don't want to get in too much into stories, but you kind of know if you're doing something that is reinforcing your attachment to something, and all it's doing is saying, don't do that. But also I would follow that up with say, then you'll see that there's areas where you can't help but continue to do that, creating attachment. And that's an area where it seems to be necessary to have a practice, an awareness practice, and to have a connection to the three jewels, the teaching person, if you have one, and the teaching itself, that was you just quoted, of the precepts. I think that's one of the three pure precepts in our tradition, which you've received, and it's just saying it in such a way, don't do harm, but it's laying it out. Don't do things that create attachment. So that's very, very uniquely individual to each person. But do you have any ideas about how that would apply to you without being too personal with your own history?
Chokodao bowing. I guess I could use my children and watching that attachment and things that maybe there's not much I can do about it, but observe it. So
Very good.
it gets better and it gets worse.
Oh, I know. And I'm familiar with some of what you've told me about your situation with your two sons. So, and I probably have said it to you before, but I said less is better. That doesn't mean less being with them or looking at them or listening to them, but less interference with what they're doing. Because that karma needs to fulfill itself. And it might be much more difficult stuff than you personally can handle with your karma as their dad. Quite often, people as parents think they need to somehow fix their children instead of allow them to experience their life as it is. That's really hard, especially when the child doesn't have an awareness practice. But before they get to be 10, 15, they don't really need one. They're already more aware than most of their parents. They're suffering, especially your son, Oscar. More?
Sokuzan, I just, as you're saying that, I can't help but reflect on how difficult it can be to partner with someone to parent children in the way that you're describing.
Yeah. Good luck. I don't know what else to say. It's I've had several children myself. Well, I didn't have them. I had help. It was difficult to try to do that by yourself, but it's very confusing. If it weren't for the path, I would have, moved to Burma or something a long time ago. Very difficult. So, more questions around, and then we have a few minutes.
Bowing.
Peter Bowing.
Everybody speak up at once. Go ahead, whoever. Peter, go ahead, and then I'll get back to Jishin, and then I'll go to, what was your name again? Mozuku. Okay. Go ahead, Peter.
When I'm sitting and I suddenly see that my mind is wandering, what is that consciousness?
Yes. You don't have to do anything with it. There's other kinds of teaching, but if you're listening to me, having done this for a while,
Yes.
a lot of it, I'm saying just watch the wandering mind. That's awareness. You don't have to not fall asleep. You don't have to contain your wandering mind. You don't have to be any different. Just be aware of the wandering mind. It's quite it just feels appropriate. If you just do that, just be aware. More, Peter?
Mm. No, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question. Jishin.
Bowing. What is the relationship between giving up and receiving? Bowing.
There is no relationship because they're not separate from each other.
Do we have to give up to receive?
No. Don't give up. I don't teach giving up anything, do I? Milka? Ever told you to give something up?
Talking.
Give up talking? Well, that's very specific. I didn't say to shut up, didn't I? But that was finally honed for your particular dilemma of jabbering too much. You're welcome.
Certain.
More, Jishin?
Bowing. Maybe I misunderstood your teaching today, but I thought that you said give it up.
Did I
Um,
say that?
Lose?
lose? Yeah.
Oh, no, lose? You can
Yeah.
lose. I lose. I lost. You lost? We lost. Yep. Yeah, lose. It's not something you do. It's just you stop trying to grab on. It's like letting go, but it's not something you do. I never say let go. I say look at the way you hang on. And if you can see the way you hang on, you can see you can't let go. That's losing. You just can't there's no dynamic for letting go. You can't pull your fingers away from whatever it is. Because why? It's an illusion. It's unreal. You can realize that that's available to you this very moment. It's available to you every moment. And there is only one, and it's this one.
Thank you.
If you need to, I just want to say if you need to leave, yeah, good to see you. Come again. Come again.
Sokubowing, at the beginning of the talk, you said that you can't really see the root. So can
Yeah.
we only see the outflows from attachment?
Yeah, you see the leaves and the branches and can't see the root. The attachment you can't see. You just look, the problems are the everything else. And that's why it's called a root, because it's under the ground.
Mr. Bowing, how can we be aware of something that we can't see?
Look at the leaves and the branches and just keep looking at it until you see the trunk. And then you'll see where the trunk goes into what? Dirt? Just continue to look at it. It's a metaphor for it, so it's only going to work pictorially or even logically to a certain extent. At some point, you're going to have to look at it even in a more less with pictures and less with concepts and more with just a feeling of being gnarled up in something. It's like a knot in the mind, but it's not really a knot. It's not something you can untie. It's something that is not real.
Mr. Bowing, that's the direction I was going. So is attachment an energy, or is it different from an emotion?
Well, those are concepts, emotions, energy, and use all, but those don't get us to what it actually is. What gets us to what it actually is to look right at it. And it's just like looking in the darkness. It's not moving away from the darkness so we can look at the concept of energy, or looking away from it so we can look at the concept of a root or a knot or anything. So that gets us to that, but then it's in some area of the sitting practice, you're just going to have to look into the darkness. Can't see the light unless you look into the darkness, to use kind of a silly metaphor. But
Mr. Bowing, can I distinguish an emotion from an actual attachment?
what is it you want to know?
I want to know what an attachment is. How would I recognize one if I saw it, except for just the emotion or the desire, or I'm just not clear what attachment.
I think it shows up differently for different people. So I would say you're doing fine. Just keep going. I could go off into some kind of description of it, but I don't think it's going to be helpful. Continue to look, continue to return to the cushion, return your practice to the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha. We need some kind of an algorithm to even keep us from going off into samsara and trying to be a big success story. Have a little bit of time if there are any further questions. Yes, sir.
Sokuzan Bowing, been wondering about the attachment to body as being maybe a pretty powerful one for myself. What's a way to work with looking at that attachment?
Again, so something you'll heard before. So observe the movement. So when you're doing sitting meditation, you're holding very still. Observe the movement. Don't necessarily return to it as a reference point, like the shamatha practices. Return to the breath, or shine, return to the breath, and so on like that. Don't do it in that way, but just flash on it. Position of the body, sitting symmetrical. Notice aspects of the body that seem to be in motion slightly, just like the diaphragm, but don't stay with them, just flash on those. And this will give you an understanding that is along the line of the conceptual structure, classical structure of consciousness around the ego, which is form, feeling, perception, concept, consciousness, the five skandhas. And so the first skandha is the form one, and all the other four are consciousness skandhas, as you already know, and just breaking it off into consciousness and the body. So just body awareness, I think, is enough for that. And that means that you'll notice, like one of the things I've been noticing is if I get a little bit unsure of what I'm saying or a little bit off balance, my left shoulder moves. So I'm not saying that will happen with you, but you might notice little slight body movements, not only when you're in conversation with someone, but also when you're sitting, holding very still. It's about being aware of the movement, not about maintaining some kind of stillness. So I think that's where I would, as I understand your question, that's where I would do it at, and it doesn't have to be long periods of time. It can be 10 minutes of holding very, very still if you can without being rigid, and notice anything that insists on moving. One of them is going to be, of course, your diaphragm, because you need to breathe. You don't hold your breath, do you? You sit. That won't work. You cannot live.
Okay.
So hold everything still that you can, and then you can notice what continues to move in the mind stream and in the body, which are not two separate things. I'm not saying they don't look intensely like two different things. And you may not realize it while you're a living being, while consciousness is showing up as a human. This human may have to die before you realize that the body, mind, consciousness, mind, all they're not separate from each other. They're just consciousness only. And it may become embodied, it may not. You may end up in another lifetime. It may be human, it may be alien, it may be a squirrel. I'm not predicting the future. Am I predicting the future? What do you think? Okay, I am predicting the future. You'll become a squirrel. Yes, sir.
Do superficial or specific attachments help us see a deeper or more fundamental attachment?
Yes. Yes, just whatever, any superficial attachment to, whatever it may be, more mundane kind of things I think you're talking about. So attachment to, just trying to come up with something that would be, maybe you could come up with something more precise or more accurate, but like the attachment to getting a good night's sleep. It's an attachment. It's not like, oh, that's wrong. You shouldn't be. It's not about a should and shouldn't. That's a very difficult area to work with. It's so easy for that part of the mind that is self-centered and egotistical and narcissistic is to grasp onto something, try to stop it, grasp onto something and try to enhance it or fluff it up. So it could be that. It could be a fixation on orderliness, fixation on cleanliness, a fixation on just not being concerned with, oh, so what, things are disordered. I like a little chaos around it. But I couldn't be orderly if I wanted to be. I'm very disorderly. You've noticed that? Yes. More about that? Am I close to what you're looking?
It just feels like there's a kind of proto attachment under the radar that has to take place in order for the other attachments to even occur. And I'm curious how to use these attachments that I can see to help me see that earlier attachment that is harder to see.
So the basic misunderstanding is mistaken identity, that there is a solid being. We have hands, we don't have them, they're just hands. They don't belong to anyone. The ownership is a misunderstanding. The boundaries, the natural boundaries of the boundary of my skin or where I'm at and your skin and your body over there in the distance, those are part of the illusion. They're vividly unreal. They're powerful. Most of the world runs on that. You're over there, I'm over here, and this is my territory, and you better stay out, and so on like that. But as practitioners, what we're doing is we're working with that same kind of fixation or preference to keep things back or control things. So it's about the awareness there, so that as we go along, we eventually over time will begin to realize the true nature of what this is, which is nothing is separate from anything else. That the degree to which we think that it is, that's the degree to which we are hoodwinked by the illusion. So it could, I would say, just continue the way you're going, just sit a lot. As you know, you've heard me say many times, sit a lot. And there will not be an event. Awakening is not an event.
More, please. Would you say, or could you say that any form of attachment requires or implies some form of reification?
I'm not sure what you're asking me. I hesitate to say either a yes or no, but get me closer to what it is you want to know.
You talk about illusion and delusion.
Yes.
And not being deluded by the illusion. So I'm wondering if if we just loosely define reifying as treating the illusory as if it's real, does that have to happen on some level where we have to treat something that's an illusion as if it's real in order to attach? Like we
That's
take for
interesting.
granted that we believe our thoughts, for example.
I think that to go in that same area you're in, I would say it's very situational. And I think it's your particular path will be unlike anyone's. You'll not, the further you go, you will have there's no tonto sitting next to you telling you what to do. You're all by yourself. You're going into that. So some of that may show up, but you may need to make that determination yourself. Sir. Yes.
Mr. Gubowing, is attachment the way you're talking about it or the way you quoted? Is it something other than just the three poisons? Is it other than grasping, aggression, and ignorance?
No, that's the best way to describe it. So the fundamental attachment is attachment to a self. And the other aspect of duality is attachment to other. To think that this attachment to people functioning a certain way around you, or you being attached to yourself, to protecting yourself, protecting your reputation is a good area. So a rumor starts going around that you're this and done this or done that. You know how painful that can be. Has that ever happened to you?
Mr.
Happened to
Gubowing,
me all the time.
sure. But to Yinlong's question a second ago,
Yes.
those would all be attachments, if we're calling them attachments, or some kind of to a concept, to something that isn't real.
Yes.
So I'm back to the question of so is that that grasping, you can't grasp something that isn't real, or what would it?
But if you think it's real, then the grasping goes on. We continue to rotate in this realm of samsara, of living, thinking this illusion is real. So if you try to let go of it, then that's an illusion because there's nothing there. You can't let go of something that's unreal. You have to see that it's unreal. And then if there's any necessity for it to disconnect, then it just shows up. It just starts to fall apart. As Kobun said when he translated my teacher, Kobun Roshi, translated the Heart Sutra mantra, falling apart, falling apart, falling apart. Nothing to do. Everything all at once. Space and time collapsed for him. And his whole idea of the world and himself and an ego just came apart. It just fell apart. Muchas gracias.
Mr. Gubowing, attachment to me sounds like it's something that happens either continually or repeatedly, like there's some kind of habit aspect to it. Is that the case?
Yes, it could be. Continue to reach and grasp and shut down. Attachment is also pushing something away. Aggression. It's just that we're treating something as if it's real. So we have an attachment to getting rid of something. We have an attachment to getting more of something. We have an attachment to something in such a way that is so disturbing, bothersome, or disconcerting, or whatever, that we want to just distract ourselves from it. So we use other parts of the illusion to look at, like Monopoly. Let's just go play Monopoly and not worry about our life. I'm being a little bit silly here, but it functions like that. I'm sure you know it. Everyone in here knows that if you're having some difficulty, maybe going for a walk works for you. I'm not against going for walks. So don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that it's about awareness. It's not about whether you go for walks or whether you distract yourself or whatever. It's about being aware that you're using something to distract yourself. Your smartphone. Notice how much we have our heads buried in the smartphone. How I know? I have my head buried in it all the time. But it's about being aware of that. If you're aware of that, then the natural equilibrium of just being a living being in the middle of this illusion of three dimensions, of the dimension of time and space also, then we function in this with the precepts, with the three pure precepts. Do no harm, do good, be with all things. Very simple. just really hard to do when there's a lot of fear or passion, aggression, and ignorance happening in that area of consciousness that thinks there's somebody, a knot of me in my life and myself. It's like a knot in your fist, or in the fist in your middle of your heart. Yes.
Mozuku bowing. So does attachment have more of an aspect of an identity or identifying with or being absorbed in
Yes.
something than just the three poisons?
You're not going to eliminate the three poisons. The three poisons it's a grasping, and it's a rejecting, and it's a shutting down. It may be very subtle, so you don't see much of a movement. You can be grasping at something without anything moving at all. You can be, if that grasping goes on for any length of time, so to speak, and that illusion of time, it's called fixation. Some people, the way their wiring is, go back and forth. They fixate and then they goes the other way, and then they fix it, and it drives them crazy because they can't get a reference point. They think everything's good and they got it and they figured it out, and then all of a sudden it just falls apart and then they go the other way. Then there's other people that once they fixate on something, they aren't letting go. They stay right there and they just clamp down on that. It's called fixation. It's very, very difficult to deal with. I mean, really, really hard because it seems so true. We're so convinced that these are real feelings.
I can't put it in a question. Thank you.
You take one more. Go ahead.
Question on YouTube from Stephen Bowing. What is this feeling of being unable to articulate? The immediate feeling like I've left it, in quotes, when I do.
Yes, not knowing you at all, I don't think. I would just say that's awareness. Don't do anything with it. Just insofar as the awareness, it's just that all you're doing is watching the way you're disconnecting. Nothing to fix. You don't have to stop doing that. You don't have to figure it out. You don't have to be someone else. You don't have to continue. You don't have to ever do that again. The only thing I recommend, which you probably know already, is to hold still a lot, train your mind, watch the movement of the mind. So you see, Stephen, is it Stephen?
Yes.
What you're already talking about is, sounds like somebody who's meditated some. You just notice that when something shows up, you just can't find words for it. That's when the conceptual mind, the fourth skandha, is starting to become what is called in the tradition called self-existing, rangjung. So it's no longer connected with everything else, but it still operates. It operates on its own, just like body operates on its own. Feeling is feeling. Body is the body. Perception is perception. Concepts are concepts. The six sense fields and their objects are not necessarily aligned with the body. They are only brought together in a body with consciousness that thinks they're a separate being. And I don't think about that. I'm not, let's see, how can I describe this? I don't think about it. And Stephen, I would say that you should continue to look at it. Thank you so much.
My name is Mozuku, and I am one of Sokuzan's monks. Sokuzan's teachings and this community depend on your generosity, both through your participation and financially. If you value these teachings and this community, please consider donating on our website at sokukoji.org. Thank you so much.